To explain the bill, because he needs to give it to Judge.
Hey guys, let's go ahead and get started. It's about 20 till, so we gave everybody a little 10-minute window to get here. We did the best we can. This is the House Ways and Means full committee. The only thing on the agenda is the favorable report of House Bill 4088 by the Revenue Policy Subcommittee. I'm going to turn the chair over to Representative Herb Kurtzman. Chairman Herb Kurtzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're going to start running a tight ship here today.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, House Bill 4088.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yesterday in subcommittee, Representative Stavronakis said that this announcement that Volkswagen will be building the Scout electric pickup trucks and SUVs in South Carolina is a grand slam. That's not really a sufficient description. It's a grand slam, more like in the bottom of the ninth in the seventh game of the World Series. This is a big deal. It's a grand slam for Governor McMaster, for Secretary Lightsey, for the Department of Commerce, for the General Assembly, and most importantly, it's a grand slam for the people in South Carolina, especially in the Midlands. This project will have the largest automaker in the world and the seventh largest company build an American brand for the American market right here in South Carolina. The commitment by Volkswagen is massive. It's $2 billion. That's their investment. It's 4,000 jobs at a minimum and 200,000 vehicles a year. That's like the bottom line commitment. So the anticipation was likely to be more than that, potentially as much as 4,000 more jobs, an additional $2 billion investment. The average pay at the facility would be $98,000 for their salaried employees, $58,000 for hourly employees. We heard from an economist at USC. By 2029, the economic impact in South Carolina will be $15.3 billion. So the investment, people say it's spending or it's corporate incentives. It's an investment. South Carolina is going to invest close to $1.29 billion and expect to see a return by 2029 of $15 billion, and then it will continue to grow. There's an anticipated phase two, as I just said, where there would be an additional $2 billion and 4,000 additional jobs. Scout Motors chose South Carolina over 74 other sites. The CEO said there were 3 reasons he wanted to be in South Carolina. The infrastructure. We've proven ourselves to be an automotive manufacturing center. The workforce, they like the way the people in South Carolina work. We know how to build cars. We know how to build airplanes. We know how manufacturing works. And then the state and county in South Carolina were ready to do business. Like, we came to the table and said, hey, we want to be your partner. This isn't an adversarial negotiation. This is a partnership. We want a win-win, not a win-lose. The 7th largest company in the world is putting its experience, investment, and growth potential in the soil in South Carolina. And this bill represents a partnership and an investment in the state of South Carolina. It's a significant investment, and it reflects the magnitude of the project, $1.29 billion. So what does that mean? $650 million that we would use to construct a new I-77 interchange, area road improvements to mitigate traffic problems for residents, construction of a railroad bridge over I-77, water and wastewater infrastructure, and mass grading and wetlands mitigation. A $400 million grant for additional hard assets on the grounds of the site as determined by the company. In other words, to build roads on the site or other infrastructure that they need to put the buildings to use. $16 million to acquire property to connect to the Class 1 rail main line. $25 million to build a training center publicly owned by the Midlands Technical College to train South Carolinians for employment with Scout Motors. And a $200 million loan for additional soil stabilization, and that's to be repaid to the state by Scout Motors with a 5% interest. This significant investment, while very large, is not unprecedented. Tennessee lured Ford with a $1 billion incentive package and grants. North Carolina attracted a VinFast EV company with a $1.25 billion in proposed incentives, and Georgia doled out a purported $1.8 billion incentive package for Hyundai electric vehicles. I did read something in the news coverage that I think misunderstands how we do budgets in South Carolina. Everybody in this committee knows it, but for the folks watching at home, it mischaracterizes how we're going to pay for the project. Like all appropriations bills, we specify in the legislation where the money comes from. Currently, we have $2.4 billion in certified BEA non-recurring funds this year. That number could grow by the end of the year, but that's what we have today. So of that, this committee and I think the leadership made a decision that when you have $2.4 billion on hand in non-recurring dollars, you would rather invest that in the project than borrow the money or issue bonds, which we certainly have the ability to do. We could bond the project, but it doesn't make sense when you have the cash on hand and it's certified by the BEA. So with that said, this is what the project is. It's transformational and generational. It will bring economic growth and prosperity to the Midlands and will have a momentous economic impact throughout the state for generations to come. So, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, any questions or comments for
Yes,
Chairman
sir.
Bannister? Mr. Hosey.
Mr. Kirschman, specifically where in the Midlands you're talking about specifically?
So near Blythewood, close to the county line.
Okay. Will there be an age discrimination in employment?
So
Because I'm getting ready to leave y'all.
I feel confident that we can find the right person for you to send a resume to, but we'd encourage you not to quit your current job.
Coach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How much is one of these, did they say anything about what the retail cost of one of these Scouts would be?
Do not believe they've talked about retail costs, but we would anticipate it would be in line with the other EVs coming on the market.
Mr. Lowe.
I ask for unanimous consent to move the location of this to in between Florence and Dillon. Call for a
Representative
vote.
Rutherford objects.
Duly noted.
No
Questions?
objection.
Any other questions? Any comments?
Representative Dillard.
Representative Dillard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a comment. For those of us who live in the upstate, we know how transformational BMW has been to the whole upstate. And so this is huge for South Carolina. It is huge for the Midlands, and I don't even know that they can comprehend what's getting ready to happen, especially in the local economy. I hope that what has happened, and we can go to the Low Country too for Boeing and Volvo, yes. But I hope that there are a lot of lessons learned, and so I'm proud of South Carolina and particularly just thrilled for the people in the Midlands.
So, Representative Dillard, thank you for that and talking about BMW and Volvo and the other state. One of the things that I really appreciated from Commerce is the location of this facility will not compete for labor with existing South Carolina companies. So it doesn't hurt BMW to have another plant here. It's a good thing from supplier standpoint and from a synergy, but at the same time, it doesn't compete with Volvo just based on the distance from Greenville or from Spartanburg, the BMW plant, and from Volvo, the Volvo plant. Neither one of those will lose workers, but at the same time, it'll help all those suppliers for the automotive industry. So it's not only good for the Midlands, it's good for the upstate as well, and doesn't hurt any of the existing businesses. And I did just recall, because I got a text, that the price of the vehicles would be somewhere around $50,000. That's what they're anticipating the price of the new vehicles to be.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir. Mr. Weeks.
I think one of the things that this project does, and we've seen it before, but our state must show that we are big-time players in attempts to booster our economic development by trying to land projects such as this. And when you look at the competing states, just the states around us, as you've already indicated, Mr. Chairman, it shows that South Carolina is willing to stand tall and do what it needs to provide these kinds of opportunities for its citizens. And the economic development impact, of course, is off the scale. I mean, so I just want to applaud Commerce. I see them here today for the good work that they've done on putting this package together. And I hope that we will all be very supportive of it. I know that there are some naysayers at different points in the process, but nobody can deny that this state is trying to jump forward and provide a leadership perspective to the rest of the nation, indeed the rest of the world, saying, look, we welcome you here, we want you here, and we're willing to do what we can on a project of this magnitude to make sure that you're comfortably a part of our own corporate economic structure. So I thank you very much for the good work that's been done, and I also want to thank Commerce for what they've done.
Thank you, Mr. Weeks. Mr. Clyburn?
Thank you. I echo the same thing as Representative Weeks, but I did want to ask, are we aware of any spin-off projects from the industry?
Should there be?
Is there any peripheral or spin-off?
So the economist that testified yesterday said for every job they create, they'll create, I believe, another job and a half. So for each job, you end up with basically 2.5 employees on top of that. So it is a multiplier effect in terms of new jobs that will be created over time as a result of this project being here.
So no discussion of where those projects might go if they're spin-offs?
So on the site, they've actually set up supplier locations, so they would anticipate some of the suppliers for the plant to actually locate on the site, and then there's always going to be additional economic activity outside of the site for other suppliers or people who are servicing the plant. So those aren't specifically identified, but the ones that are on the site are.
Well, thanks. I'm happy like everybody else, and we appreciate Commerce and everything that's being done.
Thank you, Mr. Clyburn. And I think as we discussed yesterday, if I could, at the request of Representative Stavronakis, and I think Representative Murphy might be interested in this as well, the Secretary of Commerce said that he may try and bring back the Mazda Miata to South Carolina. So with that, Mr. Moss.
Hopefully they'll use one of our tire manufacturers in South Carolina to put good tires on them vehicles.
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask that Representative Herb Kurtzman's last remarks be stricken from the record.
Noted. Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, thank you. Just to follow up to Mr. Clyburn, I think when you look at the various suppliers, they're all over the state. Just as if Boeing has folks in Aiken that supply them, but like Auto Needham in Aiken supplies BMW every day with parts that they need, their on-time delivery. So I think all of us ought to look all over the state and not just think about those suppliers just being here in the Midlands. They're everywhere.
The pending question is passage of House Bill 4088. Roll call is required and ordered.
Mr. Ballantyne has leave. Mr. Bannister? Aye. Mr. Caskey? Mr. Clyburn?
Aye.
Ms. Cobb-Hunter? Ms. Crawford? Mr. Collins? Ms. Dillard?
Aye.
Mr. Gagnon? Coach Hayes? Aye. Mr. Herb Kurzman?
Aye.
Mr. Hewitt? Aye. Mr. Hosey? Aye. Mr. Howard? Aye. Mr. Hyde?
Aye.
Mr. Lowe? Aye. Mr. Moss?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Newton?
Aye.
Mr. Rutherford?
Aye.
Mr. Stavronakis? Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Weeks?
Aye.
Mr. Whitmire has leave. Mr. Willis?
The motion passes with 19 ayes, 0 nays. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes the business for today. We'll stand adjourned.